Hi, Alfred. Today our lesson is the lesson plan 22. We continue with our forest landing and we review also some advanced air work. So, are you ready for the lesson?
I sure hope so.
Well prepared, well rested?
Yes.
Okay. The last time we talked about the forest approaches. Tell me, what's your first step when you fly from A to B and you realize your engine quit?
The first step is to establish glide. So if we know we have an engine failure, we go 60 knots an hour, 150.
Okay, so fly the plane, glide speed, and what's in a 152's the most frequent cause of an engine failure?
Running out of fuel.
Fuel starvation is one, but there is also carb ice. So carb heat on. Carb heat on, glide speed. And then we'll figure it out from there. Good. So we will talk about air work in a moment. Let's continue developing our forest landing. So the last time we talked about flying the aircraft, picking a field, and then we said a couple of items we leave out for now, and then once you were making the field, so you were flying the figure eight, once you can see you are at a good altitude to make the field to go final, you go there, you do the shutdown check and the soft field technique without the power this time. So let's actually have a look at those points that we skipped the last time. So this is our lesson plan 22, advanced air work and forest part 2, and we will be talking about point 3 is a cause check, point 4 a mayday call, and passenger briefing. Now it looks like a lot, and when you fly the plane and your engine quits at 10,000 feet, you have plenty of time to do all of that. What if it quits at 1,000 feet?
We don't have a lot of time to do it.
Who cares about the screaming passenger? Tell him to shut up and fly the plane. Okay, so it's not always possible to do all of that. You do as much as you can. In our practice, what we will do, we'll do simulated engine failure by bringing the power back like we did the last time at about 3,000 feet. So that after some practice will give you enough time to do all of those items without losing too much time. And I suggest you also practice it on the ground after you have seen it in the air today, but for the next time, before you do it all by yourself, you do lots and lots of practice on the ground, just sitting in the plane and going through the sequence. Okay, cause check. We want to attempt to restart the engine at the end of it, but before. We did the first thing just after our engine quit, and what was it?
We established glide and then carb heat on.
Carb heat on. So hopefully by now it's working. It might have even solved the problem. If not, fuel. Check if you have enough fuel. That can be the cause, not that you can do anything about it at this point. It can be that in the Cherokee, for example, you can only be on the left tank or right tank, and you have to manage that fuel. And maybe you have been flying all the time on the left tank. You have no fuel in the left tank, but you might still have in the right tank. Sometimes there is little fuel left, and putting fuel pump might actually help. Or it might have, you have two fuel pumps in the Cherokee. One is electrical, one is engine driven. So try to do the best out of it, might help. Mixture. Maybe you were descending, you had mixture really, really lean at 10,000 feet, and now that you are at 3,000, the mixture is too lean, and your engine quits because of that. Mixture rich. Primer, logged, mags on both. Maybe we need to try only left or only right. So those are the possible causes. We also, what we do the cause check. We try to restart the engine. We pull up the checklist, and that's really important. When the real engine failure happens, you can be just panicking. And when people panic, they tend to forget things, forget details. If you condition yourself to do one thing, pull up the checklist. You know that all the items will be on the checklist. So even if you did all those things, but if you forgot something, you will realize that when you look at the checklist. So if there is one thing you have to remember about this item, is the checklist. So we checked everything, and we tried to restart the engine, we can't. What's the next thing you do?
The distress call.
The distress call. We haven't done those, we haven't practiced them before, but you might have read it when you did your radio operator certificate. So how would you do a distress call?
So you would, on your radio, you would select the frequency 121.5.
Mm-hmm.
And you would
1215.
Yeah, 1215, and then you would say Mayday 3 times. So Mayday, 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 and then whatever your ident is. So if the aircraft identification is like Fox, November, Juliet, Fox, you say your ident 3 times as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then you state that you have an engine failure and the location.
Okay. So as an example, it would be on 121.5, Mayday, 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 November, Juliet, Fox, November, Juliet, Fox, November, Juliet, Fox. We are in Glen Valley. We have an engine failure, and we are landing on the farmer's field. 2 people on board, 100 pounds of fuel, and then at the end we repeat again, Mayday, 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 November, Juliet, Foxtrot, November, Juliet, Foxtrot, November, Juliet, Foxtrot. Usually the towers in the area would be monitoring 121.5. Now, if at this point you are already, for example, with Boundary Bay Tower, you're coming to Boundary Bay, you're not making the field, but you are on Boundary Bay Tower, and you experience an engine failure, would you switch to 121.5?
Probably not right away.
Which frequency would you transmit?
Probably the nearest tower or the frequency.
You're on Boundary Bay Tower, you're talking to them. Then keep talking to them. If anyone can send help your way, they can do that. So you already know that someone is listening. Go ahead with the traffic frequency, traffic control frequency that you are on already. Now, if you're talking to Glen Valley traffic, switch to 121.5 because no one cares and no one listens to Boundary Bay other than traffic to traffic. They can't help you. Make sure you also put the transponder 7700. It's another indication for any tower in the vicinity that has radar. It will blip on their screen, an airplane has an emergency. If you are deep in the mountains, tough. No one might see or hear you, but you can try at least. In this case, I would even do this Mayday call before the cause check while you are higher up because you keep descending as you're doing it. So I would do it as a very first thing high up while you still might have reception to someone, and then you can do your cause check when you're lower in the valley. Any questions so far?
No.
Then we deal with our screaming passengers. By now they freak out, they have no idea what's going on, depends what kind of passengers you have, they might be like really, really scared. So, not that we care at this point how comfortable they are, we just need to get them down safe and make sure they are not an interference to the safety of the flight. So, give them the information. So, say we have, dear passengers, we experience an engine failure. Don't worry, I have been trained for it. Give them some peace of mind. And then give them instructions. We are going for this field right now. I would like you to remove all sharp objects out of your pockets. Make sure your seat belt is tight. And when we are on final, I will ask you to unlatch the door and latch it open, in case of a 172, for example, or somehow secure that the door is open, that the airframe wouldn't bend. And when we land, you need to leave the aircraft as soon as we come into a stop and we will meet behind the aircraft. Just give them clear instructions. If you need any additional help from them, tell them. Keep them busy, especially if that helps you. The last thing you want is them screaming and interfering with you flying the plane. If you are calm and you are on top of things, that will help also them to just follow through with it, as opposed to see the pilot panicking. Then that is not a good sign. Okay? So that completes the 3 items that we had before, and after that you have already seen that we go for final shutdown check and the touchdown in case of an actual engine failure. What type of approach, how did we call this type of approach the last time?
The
Figure eight.
Yeah.
Figure eight. And this is the way we fly. You might hear, and you're welcome to read about those other techniques. This is the one we are using, but just that you're aware, there is a 360 approach, and there is a circuit approach, so as if we were flying a circuit. There are reasons why we do not teach them, because it's a little bit harder to predict your altitude and make the field consistently. So those techniques are valid, and some people do them, and you might hear about them. However, in our flying, we will stick to figure eight, which guarantees you the highest probability of actually making your field. If you do it right, you can do it every single time, and that's important. It's not about fancy technique, it's about making the field where and how you want it.